Good morning, everyone. Bradley, good afternoon in the UK. It's so good to see everyone again. Seth, welcome to the table.
Morning, brothers.
Ezriyah, Michael, welcome. And whoever jumps on as we're talking jumps on. As I was saying to you before, whoever's here at this moment is exactly who's supposed to be here right now. So as I was proposing, I think, it's incumbent on me to attempt to do a better job on the context of why we congregated. Miguel, good morning. How are you? So I'm going to attempt to explain why, the idea that I had and Bradley had, and everyone was doing this anyway. So this is sort of like a co-creation of, and just uniting together under the same co-creation. So my concept or my idea was to bring a group of men together in various stages of their lives and in various states of consciousness, and allow men to talk freely, to talk with authenticity, to talk with love in their heart. The whole purpose is to heal through the words that we express, the words that bind us down, the word that burden us. The whole purpose of this table is to bring unity and love into this world. So it really saddens me and breaks my heart when I read comments from women on the board after the first video that didn't achieve that, and I honor the strength and the courage for their expression, and by no way or means I want to share some of these comments, because this is exactly what's happening on a macrocosm level. This unity of men, the six of us coming together and expressing, is happening on a greater context. So I'd love for us to have that conversation first and see what comes for you as I read the first comment. And I'd love if you can all feel into what I'm about to read. And then I'd love if you can all comment in if it resonates with you. So first comment is from Rosh. Rosh, I want to honor you. An incredible, insightful, well-articulated, well thought out comment. I absolutely love it. And I want to thank you for writing it. So here's the comment from Rosh. Firstly, obviously, there were some very important things here, but some things disappointed me, and I was shocked to hear them from this community. When Sean said, instead of cheating on my wife, he insisted, indulged in fantasy with a motherly, nurturing slut. He said so without shame or comment on the moral integrity of his actions. Instead of cheating on his wife, he imagined that he was doing so with possibly the most disrespectful caricature of womanhood and female sexuality. I think that any wholeness he felt from that experience was a unification of the toxic masculinity and toxic feminine within himself. This being the desire for infidelity and the fantasy of the female sex object. And when he spoke again saying, I can speak for the feminine, it was a mistake to say this with surety, as his integration of the feminine energy was through a fantasy that is reprehensible at every level of analysis. The fact that no other man said word of question or criticism to this made watching the rest of this meeting impossible, although it was set up with a good intention. But where is the clarity of thought or sight when you speak of love and progress, but show no attempt to speak up with confronted with something so blatantly worthy of questioning? The failing here is clear. A rise of the feminine conscious energy will mean chaos without also a masculine energy that equates in value and strength. So for me, at least, this interaction has shown that these men are knowledgeable, definitely, but they're not quite the progressive they see themselves to be. So that's the first comment from Rosh. And I have nothing to say about the comment. For me personally, it resonated at such a deep level, and for the greatest part of those comments, I absolutely agree with what she said. I'm assuming Rosh is a female. So over to you. Who would feel resonating to comment?
I'll go first since nobody else is.
I definitely want to go second after that, brother. I'm with you.
Am I speaking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Be clear. So, I wasn't with you guys on the first one, so I wasn't present when that happened, but I did watch half of the roundtable. And when it got to that point, I remember just being like, whoa, okay. Like, it definitely kind of threw me off a little bit. Whereas everybody else I felt was much more in coherence, and everybody was more progressive. I kind of disagree. I agree with everything she said about the overall intention of the comment, but I feel like as men, as humans, we are living in one of the most chaotic times ever, and we are doing the best we can. I mean, each and every one of us, male and female alike, have been subjected to such intense social and societal conditioning for countless generations. And now we are at a point where the chaos of a non-sustainable perspective of self and reality is becoming apparent in the world around us, apparent. Every system we're witnessing is collapsing or falling apart or breaking down. And something new has to take that place. Now, the masses don't really know what that new thing is. And those of us that we might want to say are divine masculine or aspire to be divine masculine, which is a title really, but essentially what we're all trying to do that I feel is get into a truly loving space where we love ourselves. And when you connect to what it is that we're actually loving, because it's not just, oh, I love me, Seth, the person, the ego. It's beyond that in the sense that we're learning to love the energy that animates our being. And then from that place, we have a better form of interacting with ourselves, each other, and the world. And I think that's just a process that is unfolding at different rates for different people, depending on, their life experience and where they're going. So that's my 2 cents for that.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
Brother. You know what, brothers, I think I was triggered by it, and I wanted to sit with it for a second. And I really love what you've spoken to in regards to just the constant change that's happening with all of us in this world. Sean, is Sean not on the call?
No, and I want to actually speak to that as well, because this is not about being in any judgment of Sean. I mean, this is the greater context. I honor the comments that Sean had. Those comments are right for him in that point in time. And in my view, and I'm sorry for taking over here a little bit, Ezriyah, but I think—
Go ahead, brother. It's okay.
I think for me, this vulnerability, because, we're all in different states of vulnerability sharing here amongst you. I think for me, as someone looks in, I feel it to be a privileged position in the way that we are all communicating, especially in the authenticity. I can speak for myself as far as from my authenticity.
Yeah.
We've been so subjugated, generally speaking, both female and males, and repressed emotionally, repressed psychologically, repressed in every way, shape, or form. And the only way that we can begin honoring any healing within these bodies, both male and female, is by allowing the words to come out. Unfortunately, it gets messy when you start expressing it. From my perspective, from my view, it gets very messy. And I don't believe that was done out of malice. I don't believe that wasn't done out of spite or anger. I think when we express these deep emotional, repressed emotions, they just come out and they want to be understood. And that's what we're here all to do, is to unpack those. That's what I want us to do, is to unpack those. That's what I want us to do, is to hold each other accountable and supportive in perspective. Ezriyah, I'm sorry, please continue.
Please, brother, no need to apologize. I agree with my being with what you've shared here. I think it is a unique thing to get an insight into this. It reminds me of being a kid with my mother. I remember we lived in Chicago for a time, and she'd go to get her hair done on the South Side, right? And so we head to the South Side, and we're Haitian and Cuban, and we're going to get our hair done by these African women who, they speak French, they're Francophone, but they don't know that we speak French as well. So and as a kid in our culture, I just stay quiet. I just got on my Game Boy or whatever. But I'm in puberty, starting to make that change. And I remember there's a phrase, a term, mignon, like for steak, filet mignon. But they also use this when they say a young man's handsome. And my mother had told me this one time. So we went in, and I'm waiting for her, because I'm not letting her go down to the South Side by herself, even though it's, she's a tough woman. She was, rest in power. And they started to talk, and I'm listening because I speak French, but I'm able to pick up more than I was able to speak at the time. And so I was just a fly on the wall. And the things that these women spoke about, because they didn't know, essentially it was like I wasn't there, and they didn't know that I spoke French. So I just listened, and I was like, damn, women say some stuff, and it was just an eye opener for me. And so they felt safe to express themselves, just like if you went to a barbershop, maybe brothers would feel safe to express themselves. And I think it's beautiful that we're in this space. And where I'm at with my being and my development in cultivating both polarities, right, is I want both of them to have a voice and to be able to speak and to feel safe. And I'm not saying, hey, you cannot make mistakes. I'm saying, let's speak, let's make mistakes, and let's get to the other end of whatever mistakes have been made. And perhaps maybe those mistakes won't be a mistake. So when I was listening to Sean, the thing that made me reflect, it almost like feel like, oh, was when he spoke to how we were speaking about the polarities, and yes, it was heteronormative, and it was a bit like, he spoke almost like we were arcane in the way that we were speaking to it. And I just think I was like, ooh, was I being arcane? Because we all in this group know we can speak to it in a more expanded way, but I think we were just getting rolling. And when he spoke to his inner anima, I believe is what he called it, his inner feminine, and he spoke in those terms of like really wanting to get to know her. And again, these are his words. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm recalling what I accepted and received from what he shared. In our travels to Bali, myself and some of my friends, and just getting into different aspects of the spiritual community, what I'm seeing, what I'm loving, say with the women who are doing dancing eros, is this ability to embrace every aspect of their nature. The men may have put something on the women, and coincidentally the women to call a woman a slut. But then for a woman to say, no, this is my nature, I want to be wild and free in my sex and open and whatever, and I'm going to define how I define myself in this life and take that power, I think it's been a beautiful thing for me to witness. And in the beginning, it was scary because it was like, what the heck is this? But it was also empowering, and it's something that I, in turn, learned from. And so in navigating my masculinity, forget that. In navigating myself as a being, I thought, okay, I want to cultivate my inner feminine as well. And I have an example now of what I can allow. And then coincidentally, that inner feminine can now teach my inner masculine. And so there's this balance of what's okay, what feels funny, who's said this can't be. And what I feel that Sean was speaking to was, one, navigating his urges, and also allowing for whatever his inner feminine wants to be called, whatever he wants, whatever she wants, to be okay. And not so much trying to speak in a disparaging way towards women. This sounds like a defense, but I'm just speaking to what I interpreted as opposed to defending. And I'm also saying it's okay because I've spent time with beautiful women who they express themselves and they have high regard for every aspect of themselves. And so for Sean, I want to honor every aspect of himself that he wants to show and express, because it's an evolving thing. We're all evolving. And so I hope that women's listening who perhaps listened before. And I think that for whoever's tuning in to these things, listen all the way through if you can, stomach it, because you can turn your back at one point in the triggering and miss the whole evolution. And I think the evolution, observing the evolution, gives a beautiful context to a person. And so, like, I dig what he was saying in saying, this is my ideal, and my ideal has these characteristics, and I accept those characteristics. And they also enable me to be honest with my urges and still have a proper relationship with the being, the woman that I have to share my walk with in the physical. And I've also met him and his wife, and I've spent time with them and their family, you know, and I just think they have such a beautiful connection and a beautiful family, and love their kids. Leah calls me homie because her son calls me homie. That's why. So I might be biased, but you know, I see something that I really appreciate there in terms of knowing a little bit about their history, where they come from, and how they navigate now. And that was a beautiful insight that I gained from him that last week, for me to sit with my inner feminine as well, being in a long distance relationship, and to think of, you know, like, am I being good to her? And is she able to speak as well? And allowing for a discourse between those two. So this is what I wanted to speak to, and also just say once again that I love you guys, and it's really beautiful to have the space to be able to speak from the heart. And I want to, even if I say something that's going to bring you ridicule, I want to, in this space, speak from my soul, my being in my heart, because I don't want to give you any less. And I want all of that from you too. Hello.
Thank you.
Who's compelled to speak next?
I'm going to open my mouth.
Yeah. Glorious. So much glory in that, Ezra.
Bradley, by the way, I feel you right now. There's so much going inside you right now. And all I would ask to honor whatever's going in right now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna see what comes. Definitely, definitely triggered some shame in me, you know, hearing those comments, because I remember Sean speaking at the time, and I remember those words, sacred slut, coming out of his mouth. And there's part of me that kind of spiked, it was a little bit spiky within that. And on the other hand, I really, really fully love and respect Sean. And I know that when he's speaking those words, he isn't coming from an attackive place. He's coming from a journey that he's had within himself. And I know that Sean has nothing but love and respect for women. He has nothing but love and respect for the feminine. And I also know some incredibly powerful, beautiful women, journeyed women who can go into that aspect of themselves and regard themselves. And I'm quoting women that I know, a sacred slut. I know them, that, you know, a badass sacred slut. I know them to use those terminologies about themselves. And so when I heard those words from Sean, I can only imagine that that's been his own journey within himself and his experience. And and at the same time, I really also acknowledge where the comments come from in terms of that, like, you know, the reality that we're lived in, where this sort of terminology gets used to degrade women. And I can understand why that would have been triggering for a viewer who maybe doesn't have any context on Sean's experience and his own journey within himself and from what he's viewed.
Sorry.
That's okay. I think the thing is, it's like we've just got to allow for it all, because that is the nature of the feminine, right? Is the divine feminine is radical acceptance of everything, and it is It is this view and that view, and that they all have a place. And like from that place, there is no shame, right? And then as soon as I speak those words, that trigger that I felt in here starts to dissipate, because it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with what was spoken in either from either side. It just is, and it's in our job to sort of bring just awareness and presence and allowance to that. And it's interesting because this is the natural push and the pull of what's going on inside the collective and the conversation. And the reason we're here right now is to allow for both of those, so that we enjoy this dance of man, woman, and then inside us all masculine and feminine energies that are sort of dancing together as we continue to evolve and expand and shift.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Well, this is really great that you kind of said that you got to allow both of those expressions to exist and be, because maybe it's my youth talking, but I actually had the opposite reaction listening to that comment. It wasn't one of shame, but it was almost one of like, who are you to judge him? Like, and it was like the opposite of shame for our actions in not saying anything to Sean's words, but it was like rash yourself, you know, like you're the one that's in the space of judgment in my mind, and I was like judging her then for being in that space, you know. And it was like the opposite, and it was like, who are we if we want to be divine beings, whether that's embodying the masculine or feminine at the time, we have to also be able to fall into and be our most powerful selves and embody that in our space that we hold and in our belief systems. And that's what we need to do more of in the world, is to express ourselves truly. And that's what Sean was doing. And so you, Bradley, bringing it back into, like, Rash has her own experience, and that involves so much beauty for her to get to that space of understanding what the word slut means to her. And of course there are societal implications and historical implications of that word, and that is a totally fair thing too. So it's kind of like a full circle that I went through of, I think, Seth, you said at the beginning that Sean's words were obviously like you didn't agree with them or whatever, but yeah, it's cool that we can all be in the space, and these are like pretty serious triggering things to certain levels of awareness and to everybody, and that there's different ways of putting it, but I think it's all here in the whole, and we're making it whole by allowing it all to happen. And that's the whole point of this journey, right? It's not to, it's to get through the shame of existence, to understand that there is no shame of existence, and to get through the micro shames that we have to feel all the time. So that's funny. I just, yeah, I was kind of giggling inside. I was, oh goodness, sorry, it's a bit loud. Yeah, that's just how I felt. I felt a defense of Sean and an agreement with, because I remember feeling that, like, while he was talking, that at the beginning I maybe felt the word. I was like, oh yeah, that word is happening. But I was in a state of patience and waiting to see what would come out of the full expression of his use of that word, right? And I'll change spots in a second. But yeah, we have to, as beings, allow for the full expression of something before we, and try and get techniques to get through our initial feelings, and that's what we're doing. And yeah, that's all.
I'd like to jump back in.
Oh,
I think
Yeah.
If that's okay. Let me just sit with it, because there was something that I really felt strongly there. Nature of divine masculine is presence and protection, right? And it's like the experience of shame I had, right, takes me out of presence, because the nature of me being triggered in the shame is to remove myself from being present. Now that trigger, I see like I'm wrong, right? That's distorted masculine, right? Because the distorted masculine matrix we're part of is like this or that, right, wrong, good, bad. Yeah, it is those polarities, right? And then we have an emotional reaction to being good or bad or right or wrong, right? And it's like, so Miguel, he actually gets angry, right? And that anger is a protection against something deeper, or whatever it is that you're feeling beneath that anger, right? So for me, I was feeling shame, and rather than getting angry, I just wanted to go into my little shame pit. But either way, the anger takes you out of presence. The shame takes you out of presence. The antidote for that distorted masculine energy is the feminine, divine feminine acceptance of all, this and that, good and bad, right and wrong, black and white. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't need to react. I can come back to presence.
Beautiful.
If I may just say that sometimes we don't have to speak because we feel each other directly. And as each of you beautiful men have expressed yourself, it was like those words were being exuded through me because I could feel each word and resonate with it. And a part of this journey that I find in these raw, sensitive moments that we're all experiencing is really how to create less separation and more connection. And one of my journeys and masteries of life is really to look at each man and woman and see the goddess and God within them without really judging what they're saying. Because I know this monkey mind wants to say, oh my gosh, what did he say? And there's that conversation that's happening behind me. And I'm like, wow, was that actually said on camera? And what's going to react to it? But there's that discernment of the heart that just wants to hear the raw and realness because I can relate, because we've all felt those words. We've all heard this, and we've been on each side. Yet at the end of the day, I know it's coming back into complete union, into complete oneness, into our heart, because that's what we're here for right now. And it's just very interesting how I know my words can easily get me in trouble just by saying something that I'm thinking but not feeling. And I know we all have our sacred loves, our mothers, our sisters, our brothers, and we may be overexcited or we may be tired, and we say something like, wow, did I say something out of that context that I really mean, or was I just kind of vibing through the moment? And so when I heard Sean, I didn't know Sean. I felt coming on camera, we were all kind of feeling each other out, right? Just seeing what's happening, what's moving, and we all feel each other's energies. And I just want to respect him, each and every one of us, because it takes mad courage, boldness to stand up. And however those words come out, we also have to recognize it's an energy. And that energy is beyond the words. And so I'm grateful that we can express this, and for those that are listening that can hear the trigger, but also hear the forgiveness and feel the love that's behind it, because you have it right on your shirt. Zisis, we're here to bring this love into its highest expression of light right now. And for me, it's a constant mastery of using discernment and not judgment, and to see. I love what you said, Bradley, the right, the wrong, the good, the bad, like, these conditions and beliefs were dissolving as this system is crumbling down. So all of it is being brought up on center stage. I mean, there is no stage. It's right in front of us. And we have to not only feel it, express it, but we have to look at it from every angle so that we can bring it back into that oneness. And so I'm grateful for these comments, and almost grateful that I can just sit back and hear myself through each and every one of you, because I feel you, brothers. I resonate and feel that love. So I appreciate your truth, and I'm just very grateful that we can open this up and just really express what we feel and allow that to come in its raw and realness. And that's what I think Sean was doing. I don't know him, but I could feel him open up the further he went. And it was great to see his emotions come forward and his kind of guard come down, and that heart start to open. And yes, there's words that are going to throw us all out, but at the same time, we just have to accept and surrender to what is. And I feel that's each of us have expressed that in a very divine way. So thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Aho.
Thank you, brother. Aho.
And for me, as I'm viewing all this, I find it curious. You know, this is like a microcosm. Everyone heard the words, everyone had impression, but no one said anything. You know, we may even had an impulse to say anything. And isn't this curious? Because this is what happens in everyday life and society throughout. It's the lack of expression. And because we are afraid to express ourselves because of the shame, the separation, the division. I, for one, I'm tired of divisions. They're all false divisions. I'm looking for greater clarity and opportunities where we can meet in the place of neutrality, where we can find opportunities to understand each other in a very meaningful way. I'm looking for communion. That's what I'm looking for. And all of us have a higher expression. I can tell you, undoubtedly, I have said crazy shit that I didn't understand when they came out of my mouth. I know I tweaked a lot of women doing that, and I felt a sense of shame. I felt like, oh my God, what did I say? But they were words that needed to be expressed, and through the reflection of the reaction gave me an insight of what I was trying to heal within me. That's what I understand about me. And so this is why it's important for me to express and feel what I feel. And it may not be heard right. I mean, I have a responsibility to my words. Undoubtedly, I have a responsibility to my words. And as you receive those words, you have a responsibility as how you perceive those words. I think that's the responsibility in both that we come in when we speak. We have, in my view, we've debased everything in the society, including words. Words are incredibly powerful. And taking more care as we speak them and understanding them, and I don't understand them sometimes, you guys become my inner reflection, or that reflection, the outer reflection. And every comment that comes as they are perceiving it becomes a reflection for me as well.
You know, I'd love to share something too, just an observation that I've had about life in general and about these times as we're progressively moving towards what we're witnessing, this chaos and this collapse, but also a restructuring coming back into place. I've been around a lot of people, and to make a surface judgment of it all, let's say I've seen a lot of different people at a lot of different places in their own evolutionary process. And what I mean by that, like, some people don't really know that there's an inner higher power, or some are meditating for hours a day and they have really profound gifts. I've seen people at all different spectrums in their own evolutionary journey being triggered. I mean, people who are extremely gifted, like really, really triggered. And it happens time and time and time again. So we're seeing this happen across the board everywhere with everybody. I don't think anybody's exempt from it. And it's almost like we can do two things, right? We can get caught up in the trigger, allow it to unearth all of the old wounds, all of the old stuff that we have in us, and react to it in that way, right? in a way that we're defensive, like, oh, you're hurting my ego, or you're hurting, or it's like this other choice that we can make where we take full responsibility for how we're perceiving it. And that maybe the trigger or the person that we're observing this in is really just reflecting back to us a part of our own awareness that might be imbalanced or not, you know, or looking to seek balance. And I think that's kind of what you were saying, and I've heard you say, but the ability to do that transcends gender. It transcends every race, color, religion, creed, like even gender, like I said. So we're getting to this point where the polarities, the division, the separation, all that really, okay, if we're truly, I feel, if I'm being truly honest with myself and I'm walking this path and I'm seeking to evolve according to the evolutionary impulse of my being, of my soul, it is not perceiving myself as this person with a past who's done things a certain way. It's instead perceiving myself as literally this energy form that is animating my being, and then seeking to balance its expression within every facet of my being. And I know that when I do that, the things that trigger me don't trigger me the way they did when I don't do that. Because it's like, oh, okay, I'm just looking at a part of myself that I once was. And I'm able to have compassion for that, because it's not the other person. It's never the other person unless we make it about the other person, right? But when we take responsibility for ourselves, we realize it's about us. It's about our own. It's like a barometer that shows us how in tune or out of tune we are. And the willingness to get more in tune is just our choice, you know? So it's greater love and empathy and compassion for ourselves, for everything, that brings an end to that division, and it rebalances that energy that might get triggered, you know?
Well, this is a good segue then to really talk about self-love. And I know that both Bradley and I are involved in a program called I Love You Me. That program is all about self-love. You know, how many, and I can only speak about the masculine, my perspective as a masculine, you know, giving yourself, to have love, the whole healing process starts with giving yourself the love first. You know, so many of us, as we were growing up in our traumas, you know, I can tell you about my traumas, it's always protecting the feminine, right? So for me, allowing and giving myself the love first is the beginning of the healing process that allows the walls of my heart, because we all have walls around our heart. That's what prevents us from connecting as human beings, is the walls around our heart. Those are the wounds that have been traumatized within us. And as we heal those wounds and walk into our power, then and only then can we get into a point of neutrality and really connect in a very meaningful way, where we are in reverence with whoever is in front of us, because we are all multi-dimensional divine beings. And I think it's time we really understand that and work from that.
See, that's the level, right? Let's start at that level, because then we can like really connect. Then we can really start to be like, okay, if everybody and everything is a reflection of our own internal state, then I want to see the people around me that may have been quote unquote triggering me. I want to see their beautiful gifts. I want them to reflect the best, the highest potential of what they're capable of, because that empowers me. It allows me to be like, okay, I'm doing something right if I'm witnessing this in others. You know, I'm feeling more whole, more complete, more in alignment. And we all want that for each other. We truly do. And it's, you know, like, it's just, let's encourage that in one another. Let's start at that level. you know, not to bypass the old stuff because it is there, but when we commit to living much more harmoniously with the coherence of our being, then the old programs just don't necessarily have as strong of a place to live in our perception of reality. That's how I feel. It's like a detoxification, right? The more we love, the more we express and share love fearlessly, like literally fearlessly doing it, the less that old stuff has a place to exist in you. And eventually it just gets pushed out like old toxins that you don't need anymore. Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but doing that shadow work, because whole is light and dark. It's the same, right? And so many of us focus on the light stuff. So many of focus us on the benefit stuff. It's the shadow stuff that you need to shine a light. And to your point, Seth, when you are in coherence, when you are in love, when you are embodying love, you're shining the light in that. And for me, anyways, it takes real courage to be in that space. That's hard work. That's really hard work, right? But that's a decision that each and any one of us make in order to come out of that other side in a much more holistic way, a much more functional way, right?
Uh-huh.
And I really appreciate, you know, this energy of love. Or, you know, when I grew up, I don't know if I was a boy in a bubble or just surrounded by like my new age hippie family, but I grew up feeling that this love that we're living, that we're expressing, that was my reality. And part of it was because that reality was so open, that sensitivity of getting hurt through the other realities that seemed a little more dense or a little more heavy. And, you know, those that know the DC metropolitan area of America, it's conditioned program, you know, tier after tier to try to be the best of the best, the best. I appreciate the ability to be as vulnerable as possible and to really express that authenticity and truth through love. And part of my journey of this love is to really first thing in the morning to sit down in that grace and honor that love within me of all the multi-dimensions within this world. Really honoring the directions, the elements, the masters, the universes, the gods, whatever it's connected within me. I feel it's this discipline of to anchor that love within ourselves before I can really go outwardly, because that love really is within each and every one of us. And it's our daily, at least I can speak for myself, mission to be that expression of beingness, however it can be, through the kindness, the generosity, the gratitude, the compassion, but really sitting in that space and really observing, okay, where's that shame pulling me? Thank you, Bradley, for bringing that up. Like where is it my body that it starts to pull me? Or where is that anger or frustration from the news and media that sometimes I just want to turn off? Point being is, I feel this discipline, really devotion and dedication to our love. And I'll even go beyond that love. I believe that love is our source, however we want to call that, you know, whatever divine, Krishna, Buddha, Allah, whatever we want to call it, that is us. And I feel right now that expression in its highest frequency wants to evolve so great that it's really important for us and all of us, our masculinity, our femininity, our divinity, to really sit in that place and honor it. And as we honor it, it expands to help honor and respect everything and everyone around us. And so I love this element of love and self-love, so we can truly, because we are it, I feel it's now embodying it in our expression of beingness. However those fruits are seed within us, because all of us have those gifts that we're ready to share. And for me, I'm a bit excited in all this chaos that's going on right now, because I'm just ready to charge. Yet, we're still in quarantine. We're still kind of, I mean, I don't agree with all the masks and the distancing, but I'm ready to like just go out and just start hugging and sharing this love, because it's like, this is what the planet needs right now. This is what we need to go for it and just really help out everyone, because if each and every one of us could shine that love in every which way possible, wow, it could be a switch like that. So I appreciate you, Zisis, and all you beautiful men of speaking and expressing, because I feel it just takes one action, one thought, one breath that we can constantly just initiate. And for me, it begins first thing in the morning. What can I do to start that within myself? Because I know I can't drive without gas or oil in a car. I got to feed this vehicle first, and then once that vehicle's filled, then it's time to shine. And so I'm ready, but I feel like with all these retrogrades and all these energies kind of pulling us in, it's like, okay, when do we get the blast off button right now? Because I feel a lot of us are ready to shine that self-love, that energy. So those are just my feelings of the love that's pumping through my heart right now. So thank you.
I just want to add to that, because it brought something with me that I've been practicing now for a little bit, and it's the hardest thing for me to practice. Michael, you spoke about the love and the expression of love that you see, and then you go out in the 3D world and you see human beings being so cruel to each other without any thought. Brother against brother, sister against sister. The hardest part to practice is as you see that, it's allowing those heart walls to fully open and allowing that pain, that hurt to come into the heart and allow the love to transmute it within you first. Within you first. And only when you begin to do that, then and only then you become a being of love. So my daily practice is, wherever I feel triggered, instead of shutting down those walls, I open them I push them down as far as I can in order to allow the love to be, because our role as feminine and masculine, well, feminine specifically, is to anchor, it's to embody, and it's to radiate and manifest love on this planet. That's it.
I would love to share something, unless somebody else has something they would love to share. Speaking to what you said, and Z, you know a little bit about some of my background and things that I went through, and I know you mean it can be so challenging, and it's always a work in progress. Like, no matter how much we've worked on it, we continuously unearth more layers that maybe we didn't consciously know of or aware of. And, then there's always the collective aspects that we're processing. So there's so many aspects of it. But, just to tell you guys here, I spent 3 years inside of prison, and I got caught for marijuana, and I went in there, and I was a sensitive, loving, I've lived my whole life in nature. Like that's what I know. I came from parents who loved me very much. And when I first got in there, and for the first year that I was there, I was around people that, I mean, you want to talk about like people being cruel to each other and seeing just the worst in people essentially, because, you know, when you're in a place like that, everybody's the epitome of the lower aspects of the ego, you could say, really come to the surface because no one has anywhere to go. You know, we're all captive, like truly captive, locked in. And so people can't help but express and be the unresolved aspects of who they really are. And that can be, for me, that was so difficult to witness. And it was so painful because to see people fighting and yelling and just like really, really being cruel, the only way that I could deal with it was to turn inwards, to just be like, okay, there's no escape, and I'm not here to escape. I'm here to transform the way that I perceive what this looks like on the surface. And I kept doing that over and over and over and over because at that point in my life, I felt it was all I had left. It was either that or suffer as the victim that I was in that situation. And something really beautiful began to happen after I had done this for a long enough time. And again, I didn't have any roadmaps. I didn't have any real clear directives of what to do. I just had to do the only thing I could do, which was very intuitive. But as I began to literally connect to my heart and embrace the entire experience, I mean, I literally chose, I was like, you know what? I am going to love myself. I'm going to love this place. I'm going to love all the people in here. I'm going to just completely embrace this for exactly what it is. And it was, again, it was so difficult to do that. But when I started being able to do that, then those same men who were beating each other up and fighting and yelling, I could see them as young children, almost like babies, you know, but in a innocent way, with awe and wonder. And because that's what I felt in myself, you know, I literally felt that. And then when I would look at them like that and talk to them in that way, they would change instantly. They instantly shifted because they were like, oh my God, like, whoa, like a part of them, because right, we get triggered with all these negative things, but when we hold that space within us and we truly love, we can also trigger the remembrance of things that bring us back to source, bring us back to alignment. And that is just as infectious and contagious as any and all negativity and diseases and viruses and all that. And I watched so many people around me who seemed like, you know, lost causes according to society, right? Society would deem a lot of them. There's the dregs of society and lost causes. These guys just they became so grateful that they were alive, that even in a place like that, we felt camaraderie, we felt brotherly love, we felt so much respect for each other and wanting to see each other really thrive and blossom in the world, so that we didn't have to go back to that place, but that place was the catalyst to get us to that point. And so, and I'm sorry, I don't want to talk too long here because I want to give everybody space, but when I got out of that, I realized how much I had changed, but that so many other people in the world hadn't changed. You know, they were stuck in stress and fear and this and that, and they were quote unquote free, right? Like they were living free lives. And I felt more free in there than I had in my whole life leading up to that point. So what I see now, and you and I have talked about a lot of this, It's like, and I'm going to generalize only for a second. And I know words can be challenging because people have certain meanings associated with it, but let's speak with the feeling of the energy behind it. That's what we're all doing here. We know that, and we're supporting each other and holding each other in that. But it seems like of the awakening people, the people who are more awake and more aware, the women seem to be moving along quicker than the men. And the only reason, well, there's a lot of reasons for it, but women, because it's time, we've been in a patriarchal society. Men have been the ones kind of like really bringing everything out of balance. And so women are being empowered by the feminine principles that are existent within the earth and within the solar system and the universe, the structures of the universe. And so they're being supported in doing that. And I think what is preventing the men from rising up to meet them at that level is these suppressed, repressed, and oppressed feelings that we have, and our inability to not trust them, right? Because we've been taught to hide this stuff, cover it up, like, oh no, you can't feel, we can't. But it's the exact opposite. It's like, feel it, just whatever it is, like, let it be there. Love yourself unconditionally. It's okay. We all incarnated at this time to go through the things that we need to go through in order to truly be able to become a much more full embodiment of what we have the potential to be. So, like, and my point in saying all this is it can shift in a second. I mean, it can happen so fast. You know, we don't have to go through, you know, years of therapy. We don't have to go through, I mean, we can if that's what we feel like, but the reality is it's like the 100th monkey effect, right? Morphic fields, what Rupert Sheldrake speaks about so elegantly. When a few of us have decided, put our foot down, that we are truly going to live as imbalanced beings, and we're going to embrace all side of ourselves, even the parts that we don't want to embrace, that we feel guilty or shameful for. But when we just love all of that as it is, we return to a state of wholeness that is reflective of this childhood innocence and wonder. And then suddenly we want everybody to feel like that. And it can happen just like that. So I wanted to share that with you guys.
There's a reflection going on in society at the moment, isn't there? We've all been imprisoned in our homes. So the old patriarchal way of external validation, look out for love, look for love in someone else and something else. Always needing to validate based upon success, career, what car you're driving, what house you've got. That never, ever, ever is quite enough, no matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you gather, no matter any of that stuff. It never, ever fills that void. And it never will, because that is the nature of that particular system that's designed to remind us that we are not enough. And every time we're reminded we're not enough and we're triggered, what are we? We're no longer present. It's a system that's been designed and set up for us to fail. To take us out of alignment. We're going through a feminine healing. The planet is, whether we're on this call or not. You said it, that there are women who are empowered. Women are rising for a reason. It's a reflection of the shifting of the energy of the energies. We can't you know, as time goes, we are moving out of this old way, this old patriarchal system. The wounded masculine matrix is shifting. And the whole of life now is saying, stop. There's nothing to do out here. And it said, go in. And everything is telling us to go in. And to be present with ourselves. And to feel what it is we've been avoiding feeling every time we go out for that validation. And again, it's bringing that presence and that radical acceptance to wherever is showing up inside. And that is self-love. That is divine union on the inside, you know, that acceptance and that presence. And that the reason why this is happening is because this is a massive upgrade. We are going through such huge collective shift. Because we're all being forced into that space, whether we want to or not. It's to face ourselves, it's to face what's going on inside. And to really be with it, to allow it, and to allow it to move.
Bradley, that's incredibly powerful, what you just said. And I would really love if you can speak more about, because I think you're speaking from a real place of authenticity when you said those things. Yeah. And I think it's so important for the viewers seeing that. You have powerful example in your life of how, and it's just to contextualize for people that actually, men that are actually doing that right now, for them to say, hey, wait a minute, I was there. I was reaching for that love in a woman. I was reaching in the love in that bottle. I was reaching in that love for, you know, that line, you know. So could you speak to that a little bit?
What about real life examples
of you and your evolution and how you got there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means, you know, healed or whatever. I mean, I come from a world of a lot of pain, I think. You know, I was born into a family of real violence and drug abuse and just a suppression of anything feeling, anything allowing. You know, it's kind of anything but to feel, because it was just unacceptable, the feelings that were going on. And the only way to escape those feelings inside of the world I was born into, from parents, it was the fighting, the drug abuse, the drama, the external, trying to do everything to feel whole, but every action reinforcing and backing up those negative self-beliefs that they were feeling. You know, it's like, I need to do something to stop feeling like this, but every time you take an action, all you're doing is just filling up on more of the ugly, because you're not actually willing to face the darkness. And so that was what I was born into. That's what I believe was the way that you navigated your way through this life. And I pushed away everything, connection, love. I sought out fulfillment in sex and drugs and dysfunctional relationships, because I was trying to find love outside of myself. I was trying to fill up on everything outside of myself. And I hurt myself, I hurt people. I lied, I cheated, I stole, I did everything bad that you could possibly do in life. Because I was trying to find love. Really, I just didn't want to feel shit anymore. And it seemed to me, based on my experience, that the way you did that was to go out and try and find it in external things. And that is the wounded masculine. And it's like my journey really of undoing and unknotting all of that inside of me is what I'm talking about, is to go in and start to feel, to be vulnerable. Firstly, to actually start to name this stuff. Because that's terrifying inside this world. And to actually realize that all of that stuff was coming from real fear, so much pain and grief that I wasn't willing to look at. But the moment that I started to make that journey inside and start to bring presence and acceptance to those parts of myself, that's when my external reality actually started to shift. And that wasn't easy either, It's just a different journey, right? But I have to say that I much prefer my external reality these days. Like it's still hard, but it's preferable, I still journey a lot inside, and I still am encountered by a lot of those feelings. It's just now I have something to do with them, or I have tools and I have people to support me and hold space and not judge me, because I stopped judging myself, I guess. It's all a reflection, isn't it?
Most powerful thing that we can do amongst each other, both male and female, is to support each other and through our journey and through our pain and through our wounds, and to have the compassion and the kindness and the support. This world is unraveling. This world is becoming unbelievable, from Michael's point. This world requires much more love and compassion as it's doing so. We're in all this together. The greatest fallacy that we have is that we're separate. We are individual droplets of a bigger ocean. And so I would ask anyone viewing this is nurture and cultivate that love in your heart, that compassion, that kindness for your neighbor, for the person that you're across the street with, wherever you may be. Just really empathize and just know that you are them and they are you. I love each and every one of you. You are luminous beings, and for you guys to have the courage to be as vulnerable and authentic as you are right now is exactly what's required in the world. And to speak to Seth's point, You know, what we carry within our field, and science has proven this field actually works. It actually exists. We are smaller electromagnetic fields feeding into a bigger electromagnetic field of this living planet calling Gaia. What we spend time with, what emotions we spend time with, is what we are uploading into the field. So the more that we can be love, the more that we can upload love, the more that people can access that love. That's how we usher the compassion as well.
That is such an important, like, and again, it's not to not deny the other stuff, but it's like we really have the ability to choose what we want to focus on. And when we do, we feel it. Our body feels it. It just emanates out of our field. And the more of us that do that, the more we give others the permission to do the same, because it's just that return to a peaceful, childlike state, you know, where possibility is abounding and the world is a great place and anything can happen. Like, it can.
Yeah.
You don't have to lose that, you know?
And I believe what's so exciting at this moment is that the opportunity is before all of us. And what I feel in my dreams, in my community, and what's happening before us, minus all the density and chaos, on the other side of it is extreme, powerful frequencies that are moving through us. And I really feel, when I remind myself, I'm just the conduit, I'm the channel. And when I can just allow what's moving through me, through the world, because we have our personal evolution, but we have our planetary ascension as well, that we're all being these huge transmitters of light and love. And I know growing up, sometimes we place all that burden on ourselves. Yet when we can give that to the water, give that to the trees, give that to the beings that are here to support us, we don't have to carry that so much on our load, because we know we're divine beings that are so supported by so many beings that are there smiling and waiting and saying, you guys have the free will. We're not going to do it for you. You came here in this life to be the masters that you already are, to forget about this collective amnesia and just to allow. And, you know, I appreciate you, Zisis, on this weekend, because we know we're hitting solstice and a lot of our stuff's coming up right now because the frequencies are really coming through. And the more that I sit within this place of love and just allow that conduit, allow this beingness to come through, then what I love what you said, Bradley, that presence that is us, of just beholding it in gratitude, to do nothing but just to be that and to feel it and to connect with it in any which way. One of my favorite ways is nature. Let it all go and just be in that place, to feel the fullness of sovereignty and be like, this isn't me, this is us, this is we, this is all right here. And to allow that, I feel, is what excites me in this call, what excites me in these days before us, because there's such a powerful shift happening. And, you know, I love what you said, Seth, to bring that attention, to bring that focus right now, right here. It's time to celebrate, gentlemen. It's time to bring forth that, and to know there's the shadows and there's the darkness and there's our collective that is moving through some serious energies. But as I love what you said, Seth, about prison, that is within us. And if we can send that, I find some of my greatest healings is I just visualize and imagine and just watch all that love going out to all those areas of pain and discrimination and hurt, and just to really feel that and believe that we are here together in this mission to really bring peace, light, and love, and our ultimate power as human beings to live here. It is, to me, it's the greatest gift. And right now, I just find we're on such a tip of the iceberg, and just to hold that frequency right now, and in the highest level of our hearts, in the highest level of our minds, and just keep bringing that joy, compassion, happiness, and trueness from the vulnerability that we speak, because it touches my heart when I hear these stories, and it reminds me of how important it is to really express that depth within. And so I thank you, gentlemen, for really going into that depths, because it keeps showing me within where my blocks are, what areas I need to express more, and not stay in this constant, which I try to do a lot, in a positive, high area, and also recognize those areas of shadow need to be expressed with gratitude, with love, with compassion. So thank you.
Oh,
Oh,
brothers, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I feel like so much truth and wisdom is being spoken to in this video that I'm gonna watch it again when it's out. But I would almost like, for those who are watching, if you could download. I just feel like there's so many varying degrees of truth being spoken here. Michael just spoke to the support of nature. Here I am with my back against the tree for support, my greater bone structure. We're speaking to the planetary goal of coming into it, broader awareness, right? Speaking to prisons, what it is to be inside of a prison, because I'm looking at this journey of correspondence and the fractal nature of us, from the micro to the macro, and that macro continues to expand within us in our awareness, and how we're able to kind of begin to see that, the things that happen in, say, a prison, and then the broader prison that we become a part of outside, which is really inside. And I'm just, as Seth was talking, and I'm thinking about like how it continues to be, you see this in varying degrees. So we're speaking to the darkness and we're speaking to the light. And I think of something that my partner has mentioned before, that it's also a belief that I have, that everything that's going on are varying degrees and emanations and vibrations of love. And so to bring yourself into a place, and this is where the compassion begins to come in, that you can see that action, that ugly action that we deem ugly, is also an expression of love at a certain degree of consciousness, I think is very beneficial in reflecting that into yourself and seeing, where am I that's going on? Where am I all those things? Where I'm actually behaving like a child in a man's body, quote unquote, right? And then I can see that in another man and have compassion and emit that compassion and let it be reflected to me and change my world. Looking at the darkness, I feel like we're in various stages of gestation, and getting to look at everything as us moving from one womb to another womb to another womb, us as a light in the womb, and reflecting that light out until we step into a broader moment of gestation for the next set of lessons. Just, it gives me hope, and it also, makes me more willing to just bear with everything that's going on. Not that I don't plan on making any changes, because I'm someone who wants to make change and affect change, but ultimately I'm working to affect that change within myself, and I'm willing to see and observe and love, and also stand against if need be, because that's just a part of the emanation of my love and my progression. What it is that I want to express, the intention of my being's journey. And so everything else that I see is just another variation of the feedback loop of the intention of greater source's journey. And so being able to stand together in that and dissolve our perception, because what we get to perceive are just many varying different degrees at one time. It's really nice to be able to do that with a group of men and to watch in real time, but also in real timeless, us come to that that cohesive incoherency, and feel it and breathe it and hear it and see it in the different versions of me that I see here, and allowing myself to be the different version of you, which is all just coming together. So what I'm taking from this conversation is the ability to sit and to embrace and to allow and to be supported and to trust, and also to let it come to the surface and recontextualize in every presentation what we're seeing through the lens of the love that we are. So thank you, brothers, for everything that you've expressed. You're all so powerful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aho.
Miguel, what's going inside of you right now?
So I moved inside to get rid of those banging noises, but it might be a bit of resonance now because I'm in a small room. What's going on inside me is a feeling of wholeness to be with you guys. And to be honest, it took me maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes of the call after the beginning just to kind of get over on a subconscious way of the comment that was made at the beginning. And I don't want to bring it back to that, but I think it's important to note that in order to have the self-love and to have the presence that we aspire to act within at each moment, you have to be able to give time to moments of disconnection, or time to feelings of disconnection, to come and create a full fruition, and to become whole. Because I found that, when you talk to friends or when something happens to you, a lot of situations are not resolved properly because people feel the need to interject with the natural healing time of what's needed for something to move through. And I've always found that that space and that time is super important. So when you talk about shifts can happen instantly, Seth, you were talking about, I think it was Seth that said morphic fields, and feelings can just become, you can become your ultimate version at any moment. And that's true too. But I also think it's important to note that we're living a human experience, and that sometimes interjecting to become this kingly nature or this divine nature that we have doesn't serve our best good. And it's good to dip into the world and the shadowness too, right? And kind of have that dip into the king and the shadow and the divinity and the shadow, and it's good, and you need to be able to recognize that space that's needed. So now I feel, just through the wholeness of listening to all you guys, I feel so much love, and just I want to reach out to these two comments that were made, and there's another one that I read earlier. Just give them a big hug and know that, if you didn't resonate in that moment, it's all good. You're divine and beautiful, but I wasn't feeling that at the beginning, and that's okay. And people get caught up in and then the shame comes and the judgment, and why am I not feeling my ultimate version, my divine self? And it just creates more separation, and it makes that time that's needed extend and become greater. So I think it's important for everyone that's listening to this to just find that grace of knowing that some things do need the space. And it happens all the time in life. If you're with a relationship or something, and maybe you didn't tap into that perfect thing to say and something came out, and it caused all these hurt feelings. Like, yeah, that other person has the capacity and capability to tap in right away to the morphic field and just get over it and feel the love back to you. But that's not life, like at many points. And it's a beautiful thing actually to go through that kind of squeezing through the caterpillar into the butterfly of each moment, and each give it its time, give it its significance. Because if we don't give the significance to the things that we find out of alignment, then like everything is meaningless too. So we have to give meaning and significance to the things that do trigger us, and just allow it to happen, and really practice just breathing and becoming like taking that step back, and not like feeling the need to force yourself to be divine all the time. And yeah, so that's how I feel right now. I feel more of a sense of completion and just kind of feeling wavy, and yeah, really grateful we get to share this and then bring it out into the world, because yeah, we all have a lot of power, and everybody does, but you always need a reminder and like a punch of recognition of your power. So everybody does in different ways. So it's nice to always get that here. So yeah.
I may say something really. Thank you, Miguel, for really bringing forth just the importance of time and space. It reminds me when I lived in Mexico for 10 years, and it was the first time in my life that I could really feel what that presence is and get out of the fast-paced track of go, go, go. And especially growing up with healers of like, you learn it, you heal it, you move forward. And what I really embrace of what you're saying, what I love is that space of really sitting with that pain, those hurts, those grievances, that sadness, that ability to really just to honor it. And it's beautiful to really feel your energy behind the words, because some of my most favorite things to do is to take the time and space to see what's moving through without being distracted of how divine or how much I want to move into that alignment, but to really feel, okay, what's happening right now? And there were moments where it and I know Ezriyah and Bradley and Zisis and Seth, and those that travel outside of America and out of first world countries, what it is to like really create that space. For me, I had a greater amount because I spent a lot of years in Mexico just sitting on beaches and surfing and just really listening to what's moving through, and know that it's the juiciest process of it all. And for those that are listening, it's like, that's the, it's almost, we know it's the journey, not the destination, right? So what we can share in the processing of it, I feel helps so much more than actually the completion of it, because many will hear the completion, but they won't quite resonate with, well, how did you process through it? And what did it really feel to dive into that shadow and to really take that space and integrate? Because integration to me is I feel is the most powerful element of all that's moving through us right now, and how we integrate and what we choose, and allow our fullness of feelings from high to low come out and meet them, and however which way serves us. So thank you, Miguel. I appreciate you just allowing that grace and softness, and most important, your ability just to share that truth in space and time, because in a society that I feel that moves so quickly and tries to get done, moves forward, it's such a power to embrace that space, that presence, that's time. So thank you, brother.
Thank you.
I feel sorry, go ahead, Ezriyah.
Oh, I was just sending in a hope out there, but also I just think this is again, wonderful what's been spoken to today. And maybe just to throw a little icing on that cupcake, I had a talk with two people from different places in the world. One who's affecting a lot of change in Africa currently, and another one who's in Asia doing work. And they're both people who are helping folks to move through processes with the work that they do. But one commonality in the conversations that just sparked in my mind as I was listening here is, you know, what one of them and I were speaking to was the nature of the self-help, the group help, helping people to move out of that chair. You're a victim, NLP, you're not a victim, flip it, switch it. And they were speaking to the fact that something's different now and it's just not working the same. And maybe it's not where it's at in this moment. And specifically speaking to what's been in the current frame with, you know, abuses, white supremacy, etc. Right? And the beautiful conclusion that I'm also seeing here is, and even within my own journey, is sometimes it's really okay to fully sit in that chair of the victim and allow the time that we're talking about right now, and then to savor it, like allow it to the point where you can taste and sit with everything. I know this is what you're speaking to, Michael, in terms of that time away from the country, and I felt that in Hawaii, and then also going abroad further to expand on that. And I just, for me in my journey, it's helped me to step up out of that chair, to sit in that chair for as long as I needed. I shared that song Communication with some of you guys. And what I was speaking to was me saying, that was that moment in Bali when I wrote that song in Canggu, you know, when I was like, you know what, I'm okay. I'm ready to move out of the chair of the victim now. But I had to sit in it and really sit with and write and express and go into what I was feeling and what I had been journeying with. And it took me a long time. But once it had happened, once it had changed, then my concept of that time was different too. Because now years have passed and it's just a memory, but it's something that I've progressed through. So now I savor and I'm open to feeling the feels, as I'd call it. It's important that we feel the feels, and it's good to be in this field of feeling the feels together. The good, the bad, and the ugly, because they all start to look the same after a while. They just look beautiful, you know? Yeah. So that's it. That's all. I'm gonna express and just, you know, you have my gratitude, appreciation, and respect.
I just want to add a story to what Bradley started on the theme of presence. I was with a friend, and Ezriyah and I talked a little bit about this past week, where I was with a friend. I just really want to crystallize the meaning of presence for me. Trying to connect with a dear friend. I love him very much. We haven't been able to connect, and we made an agreement that I would meet him at a certain time, and he's a very, very busy man. And I thought that he would honor me with his presence for that time. And so I get there at that time and he's busy. He's talking on the phone. He's talking to a friend. You know, for a whole hour, I was compassionate enough and patient enough that I'm really saying, I'm here. You know, let's connect in a meaningful way. And after an hour, I just said, you know, I have to go now. I mean, this is just going to continue moving forward. And I wasn't angry. I was just, I just knew that I wasn't able to connect at that point in time. And as I was beginning to leave, these words came to me: is the greatest gift you can give someone is your presence. And the greatest gift that you've given me today is your presence. And I want to unpack what that means. What that means to me is that you're here in this moment. You're not in the past. You're not in the future. You're not thinking about things. You're here. You're solely here. And that is presence. The greatest gift you can give someone is that presence. Within yourself and for someone else. And the other thing I want to share with you guys is we've talked about the butterfly. It's an important metaphor. Butterflies molt into cocoon, and they with all that food that they've eaten, they become the butterfly. But a more powerful example that I know now, and I'm not going to do it justice, but so I'm just going to skim the surface. I'm more than happy to share the story in a much more intricate way, but it's the dragonfly.
I love dragonflies.
I was literally thinking that the whole time.
So was I, Bradley. You want to tell the story?
No, you go for it.
Okay. So the power of the dragonfly, when it's born into a water element. It is fierce as a water, as a molt, I guess. I'm not sure what they're called, but they're fierce and they grow and they're rapid. But something happens at some point in time, and something within their genetic code activates. And what ends up happening is they begin to ascend from water into air and go into the branch. And at that point in time, their whole genetic structure changes. And they take the water that they were in and use it as a hydraulic pump to push out the tail and the wings. And as the water gets pushed out of their being, they fly into the air. And I believe this is what we're all going through right now on this planet. We are becoming the dragonfly.
I would love to share if nobody else is going to. And I would just like to speak in reference to what Miguel was saying about, maybe I came off kind of like a little too strong about just wanting to step into that divine nature and divine self, and maybe overlooking some of the more human aspects of myself. And this is how I perceive it. There's different people who are going through different lessons, and they have to learn things in a different way for whatever point they're at in their life. I know for me, I was going through extreme difficulties, a lot of really, like a lot of pain, a lot of compounded trauma and issues that had built up over a long amount of time. And so I spent plenty of time just sitting with my human self and feeling those feelings and speaking with others about it. And it almost seemed like there was no end to that. It was like I could just continue to focus on feeling that, and it would just keep creating more of it instead of resolving it. So I got to a point where it was like, okay, I need to break the mold here for myself. I need to really just get out of the parts of myself that are keeping me from really moving beyond my own personal stuff. And then, take that and juxtapose that to our current collective situation. We are a species who has, for as long as we know, well, definitely within the past few hundred years since the Industrial Revolution, we have lived, for the most part, as a whole, very out of tune with nature. We conduct ourselves from a way where it's very destructive to the environment, to ourselves, to reality. And this whole idea of being human in the way that most of us think it means to be human is something that is requiring, I feel it's calling to a new possibility, a new dimension of being that is also human. And in fact, I feel it's more human because we can focus on the parts of us that keep us a certain way, which we've all done that. We're all really good at doing that. And some of us do it in different ways. But there's also really powerful parts of our own human body, like the glands in our body, our pineal gland, our pituitary gland, our thyroid gland, our thalamus gland. When we focus on these glands with so much love in our heart. And the intention that, you know, what I do is I literally just, I focus on these glands. I get into a really calm space and I can feel my pulse in each one of them. And when I do that and I focus on it, there's an amplification that happens where my awareness combined with feeling the pulse in whatever gland I'm focusing on causes that gland or that area or that center of the body to become activated, to wake up, to start increasing its frequency potential, you could say. And in the process of doing that, me personally, I learn a lot more about what it means to be human than I previously knew before. So, you know, when I speak of like this massive quantum shift and going into all that, it's not out of denial of the human parts of ourselves that suffer. I feel like it's actually fully embracing the potential of what we can be. And for me, like I said, I did that out of not only a desire to heal the parts of myself that I couldn't figure out any other way to heal, but to also, like, as we said, the world, look what's happening in the world. I want to be the best representation of what it is possible for me to be for this world. And I'm so willing. I mean, I'm all in willing to go all in and completely cultivate these dormant parts of my own human self that I feel have been inactive in many of us. And when they do become active, and Z, we're talking about this, like, you know, it's that coherent state. When the heart is in coherence, then suddenly the brain gets in coherence, then the rest of the organs come online. And when you're in that state, it's almost more human to me, because suddenly your heart is open, you're relaxed, you're not in a state of fight or flight, or, you know, your body's not producing stress hormones, you're not feeling like a victim, and you're not stuck in one dimension of your human self. So we are multidimensional beings. We know that. We also know that there's a lot more going on to this than we're currently aware of with our current perceptive capacities. And so for me, you know, and everybody's different, but for me, I had to know more. I had to experience more. And I knew that only I alone was solely responsible for doing this. Like, nobody was going to come save me. If there is divine intervention, it's not just going to happen because it's like, oh, you're special, I'm going to choose you. No, I knew that I had to rise up to a certain level before there was any chance of anything happening. And I'm still doing that, and I'll be doing that the rest of my life, you know, because the reality is none of us are any different. We are all the same. We are all special. We all have such beautiful gifts that when we unlock them through our own volition, through our own willingness to get in tune with what it is that is causing our heart to beat, I believe that our human self, our human identity, our human form takes on so many more potentials, so much more meaning. And, you know, I love, like, even when I get knocked out of balance, and I do, things happen, I get knocked out of balance, but I have practiced doing this so much that even when dramatic things happen, and I quickly get back into this coherent space because I've conditioned myself to be in this, as opposed to allow myself to be conditioned by the external circumstances of the world. And just real quick, Bradley said this, and I love this, because while we've been so conditioned to think that happiness or wellness comes from external means, we, like all of us on here, are learning that that's not really it. Like that's temporary forms of happiness. That's temporary forms of pleasure. It's like, it's not sustainable. But the real thing comes from inside. And that is, like I said, when I am in my heart, or when I'm focusing my awareness on these glands and I'm feeling my pulse in it, and my awareness of it is amplifying it, that is creating feelings within my being that feel better than anything that has ever happened to me externally. And the more I feel that, the more I realize, like, I'm not even beginning to scratch the tip of the iceberg of what this potential represents. And so when I look at all these systems coming apart in the world, it's like, what's going to replace it? And I feel like it's us, through these more holistic, more activated perceptions of self and reality, that are going to be that new consciousness, that new thing that comes into this to help equalize the imbalance of the world, to help bring order to the disorder, to bring coherence to what is incoherence. And I feel like, you know, I know for me, I knew that nobody was going to do that for me. I knew I had to take responsibility and do that myself. So I just wanted to clarify that a little bit more to Miguel, because I didn't want to seem like, believe me, we're all a work in progress. If I told, like, I love life so much that I'm so willing to work on all of my imperfections, which are so abundant too, you know?
Amazing. So I'm just conscious of the time right now. We're almost at 2 hours with this call. I just want to give each and every one of you an opportunity to speak what's in your heart right now as we end this particular roundtable. I think someone said there was a lot of, I love the authenticity and the sharing that was happening. It felt like we were all in the flow today. It really did feel like there were no walls, for me anyways. So who would like to go, and we'll close it with a big aho after.
I can start. Just very quickly, because Seth had a really nice soliloquy there. I just want to tell you, Seth, that was incredible. I resonated with, and I'm sure we all resonated with all that you said. There certainly was and isn't any judgment, and that's what we're here for, right? And what's amazing about this, I feel, is that I feel a more sense of knowingness. You know when you get that with the right people in life, and talking is almost like at the margins of the connection that you're building, or the experience you're experiencing. It's like, this was 2 hours of pure talking, but it was like the outside of a bubble of this deepening knowing, and that's kind of how I feel with what's been going on. Hard to explain, but I think you guys get it, or no?
Yeah.
So it's really nice, and that's kind of just where I'm at. And I do have to check out in a couple minutes, so I'll gracefully pass it on, and thank you guys for being alive.
Thank you. Aho.
Oh,
So I'll say my piece. Thank you guys so much for having me on here. I love all of you, and to whatever level you guys love me or want me involved, like, I'm willing to work through everything with all of you, however that looks, in any way, for the greater good of ourselves and all. And that's my piece.
oh,
Oh.
all right, brothers. As on the tree, just want to say that I love you guys, and this tree loves you too. And it's just good to be here. And I'm looking forward to even taking some time after this and just reflecting on what's been shared and all the wisdom that's been poured into my being from all of you. So it's a great honor. It really is. And
Oh.
thank you. Oh, aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you,
Oh, I
Sam.
think you muted, Michael. There you go.
I just want to thank each and every one of you, beautiful hearts, and all those that are listening. It's such medicine to feel the resonance in each of your spirits. When each of you speak, there's this refreshing gift that's this breath of freedom. And I really appreciate the realness, the authenticity, the truth, the vulnerability, and just your openness to share, and all those that are listening to feel the energy behind the words. Because when you guys speak, I hear your words, but I feel your hearts. I feel that energy, and I feel, you know, we're all warriors of love. We're all standing behind love in our highest level. And for all of you to speak that in the truth is just the best movie I could possibly watch right now, right here, without even clicking on to the outside environment. So thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Zisis. And I am just honored and grateful to be a part of this sacred group, and will do whatever I can to be open. Even if I'm living in a tent in a week, not knowing where I'm going to live, I will find, you know, I will find a place to find all you guys in my Wi-Fi search. So thank you, gentlemen.
Bradley.
Aho.
Aho. I'm going to go next, Bradley. I want you to close it. So I'm humbled by your presence. I'm humbled by your wisdom. I'm humbled by your authenticity. And I want to thank you for the privilege of being here with you.
Oh.
And one last thing, sorry, Bradley. I love each and every one who's watching. I love you.
Oh.
Oh.
I've got some, I'm just going to speak to what's really in the root of me right now. Because there's been I've been mesmerized by what's come through. And yet I'm also present to me on another level of some stuff that I'm journeying around. My brotherhood wounds and my need to be seen and to compete amongst other men in a space. And for me to be seen and to compare myself, and all of that old way of being that I'm moving through, and it's kind of bubbled up towards the end that I'm noticing that existing within myself. And I'm grateful to be in a space where I can actually start to look at those things and express them with other guys who are journeying that also. And my intention really is to really get in touch with the love I am in myself, so that I don't no longer need to look for the imperfections in others, that I can actually start to see the love that we all are, because I recognize it in myself.
Big hug, Bradley.
Oh.
Love you guys. Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Love you.
My phone's about to cut off, just in case it cuts off. Also, before we go, I'd just like to honor, as always, if you guys are okay with that, I want to honor my ancestors, our ancestors. I want to honor the lands and all the elements that, you know, provide us this moment, paired with our consciousness to connect with each other.
Yeah.
And for all that we get to heal on behalf of what they have brought us into, and where we get to take them, and what's going to take us into the future.
Thank you, Ezra.
Thank you, brother.
Well, thank you so much.
Love you all.
Love you.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to go, man. I just want to tap into this deeper, because I just feel like we can go in for another 8 hours of this, and just because this is what love is. This is what love is.
Love you all. Thank you. Thank
Love
you.
you guys.
Love you, brothers.
Love you, brothers.
Aloha to the visitors, to the viewers. Shoots. Take them easy.
Until
That's enough.
next time.